She thought she had everything she ever wanted, until it all disappeared with her. In 2017, a small-town waitress from Florida scratched off a ticket that changed her life forever. $34 million. That's what her ticket said. She smiled for the cameras, promised to stay humble. And just 3 months later, she was gone. No trace. No goodbye. Just a gone. This is the story of the woman who vanished after winning the lottery, and why no one can agree on what really happened. Her name was Linda Harper, 42 years old, a single mother, and the kind of person most people never truly noticed. She lived quietly on the edge of a small Florida town, where the summer air always smelled like rain and gasoline, and where every face looked tired by noon. Linda worked the early shift at Ray's Roadside Diner, a narrow, neon-lit spot off the highway that never closed and never changed. Every morning, she tied her hair in a loose ponytail, pinned her name tag over her apron, and poured coffee for the same customers who'd been coming for years: truckers, retirees, and the occasional family passing through. She wasn't rich, not even close. Her life was a careful balance of small hopes and smaller paychecks. Rent was late more often than it wasn't, and her old Honda had a permanent rattle that no mechanic could fix. But Linda never complained. People said she had one of those soft smiles, the kind that made you feel like everything was okay, even when it wasn't. Her co-workers used to joke that Linda had the patience of a saint. Maybe she did. She'd been through a divorce, raised her daughter alone, and still managed to show up every morning before sunrise, ready to start over again. On an ordinary Tuesday in March, her shift ended a little earlier than usual. The sky outside was heavy with clouds, and a thin drizzle had started to fall. Linda stopped by the Quick Mart on her way home, the same gas station she always went to for milk, bread, and a $5 lottery ticket she never expected to win. But that day, the clerk smiled at her and said, "Try this new one, it's lucky." Linda laughed, a quiet, disbelieving laugh, and slid a $10 scratch-off ticket across the counter. It was more than she usually spent, but she shrugged it off. "Why not?" she said. "Maybe my luck's due for a change." When she got home, she placed the groceries on the counter, kicked off her shoes, and set her purse down beside a stack of unpaid bills. It was just another afternoon, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of traffic outside. She sat down at the table, reached for a quarter, and started scratching the ticket absent-mindedly. The first row meant nothing. The second didn't either. But on the third, something strange caught her eye: the matching numbers. She blinked, looked again, then once more. At first, she thought it was a mistake. She squinted at the ticket, checked the fine print, then the numbers again. Her hands began to tremble. The symbols lined up perfectly. The words, "Grand Prize, $34 million, stared back at her. Linda froze. The quarter slipped from her hand and hit the table with a dull metallic sound. For a moment, she didn't breathe. Her chest felt tight, like her body was trying to decide between screaming or crying. She looked around the kitchen, the peeling wallpaper, the grocery bag still half open, the electric bill sitting under the salt shaker. It all looked the same, but suddenly felt different, smaller somehow. This was it. Her life had just changed forever. In disbelief, she called the lottery office. They confirmed it. The ticket was real. The winning numbers matched exactly. Linda Harper had just become a multimillionaire. The news spread faster than she could process. By evening, there were reporters parked outside her small duplex. Camera flashes filled the night. Neighbors she barely knew showed up with flowers and champagne. When a local news anchor asked her how it felt, Linda smiled nervously and said, "It feels unbelievable. But I'm still me. Money won't change me." It was a simple line, sincere even, but everyone who heard it seemed to remember it for the same reason. Because money always changes people. The next morning, she quit her job at the diner. Her manager hugged her goodbye, pretending to be happy for her, though everyone in that building knew. Life had just drawn a line between Linda and the rest of them. Within days, she was sitting in a bank office, signing papers she didn't understand. Advisors and attorneys spoke in words that sounded reassuring, but distant. They called it a lump sum payment. After taxes, she'd still walk away with over $20 million, more than she'd earn in 100 lifetimes behind that counter. She bought a modest car first, a silver Lexus, then a house on the outskirts of town. It had a long driveway and a gate, the kind that closed automatically with a soft hum. For the first time in her life, she didn't have to worry about rent, or bills, or the price of gas. But peace didn't come with the money. Instead, there were letters. Dozens of them. People asking for help, donations, miracles. Some were polite. Some were desperate. Some were angry. Old friends started calling again, the ones who hadn't checked in for years. A cousin she barely remembered showed up at her door, crying, asking for a small loan. Even her ex-husband sent a message, talking about new beginnings. At first, Linda tried to be kind. She handed out small checks, covered a few debts, bought gifts for family. But it never stopped. Every good deed brought another knock on the door. Within a month, her phone never stopped buzzing. Unknown numbers. Late-night calls. Everyone wanted something. The money that once felt like freedom started to feel like a weight, a heavy, invisible chain that followed her everywhere. And that's when she met Daniel. He was a real estate agent, tall, charming, and impossibly confident. He told her he could help her manage her properties, make her new wealth last forever. He made her laugh again. For the first time since the win, she felt seen, not as a headline, but as a person. Neighbors noticed him coming by often. Too often. They said Linda seemed happy, but different. Like someone who'd gotten everything she wanted, but wasn't sure what to do with it anymore. No one knew it then, but Linda's story, the story of the woman who money wouldn't change, had just taken its first dark turn. For most people, winning the lottery means freedom. For Linda Harper, it meant noise, constant, endless noise. Within days of claiming her prize, her life became unrecognizable. There were lawyers, advisors, tax consultants, and people with titles she'd never even heard before. Everyone wanted to help. Everyone smiled too much. She signed papers she didn't fully understand. Bank transfers, tax deductions, trust funds, estate plans, things that sounded responsible, but made her stomach twist. For 42 years, Linda had lived paycheck to paycheck. Now, she was being told she had assets. At first, it felt like a dream she couldn't wake up from. Her mailbox overflowed with letters from strangers, some congratulating her, others begging her for money. Old co-workers from the diner showed up at her door, holding small gifts, pretending it was just a friendly visit. The truth was, everyone wanted something. A favor, a donation, a miracle. Linda tried to stay grounded. She told herself she'd live simply, just in a nicer house. So she bought a quiet property on the edge of town, tucked behind tall iron gates and rows of oak trees that whispered in the wind. The house was beautiful. Too beautiful, she sometimes thought. 3 bedrooms, marble counters, and a long hallway that echoed when she walked. For the first time, she had space, but it also felt empty. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Sometimes it was the bank. Sometimes family. Sometimes numbers she didn't recognize. One afternoon, she received 18 calls in a single hour. By the end of the week, she had stopped answering altogether. The quiet, the kind she used to dream of, now made her nervous. Because when things got quiet, her mind started whispering the same question. Who can I trust? It was around that time that she met Daniel. Daniel Pierce was 32, smooth-talking, sharply dressed, and full of confidence. He introduced himself as a real estate consultant. He told her he specialized in helping new millionaires protect their wealth. He said all the right things, in all the right ways. At first, Linda thought he was just another salesman trying to pitch her something. But Daniel was different. He didn't ask for money, not right away. He asked about her. How she was adjusting. If she was happy. If she ever got lonely in that big, empty house. And that was the thing, she was. Linda had always been independent, but not isolated. At the diner, she was surrounded by people every day. Now, her life was a mix of silence and anxiety. Mornings alone, nights scrolling through her phone, avoiding reporters, and wondering if the whole town was still talking about her. Daniel became a kind of relief. He called her every day. He visited often, bringing small gifts, coffee, flowers, sometimes just company. He told her he admired her humility. He told her she was different from the others. And Linda, after years of feeling invisible, believed him. Neighbors started noticing. The tall man with the luxury car. The way he let himself through the gate with ease. He looked confident, too confident, like he already owned the place. One neighbor later said, "She looked happy, sure, but not safe. Like she was smiling because she had to." Within a few weeks, Daniel had convinced Linda to let him help organize her finances. He told her he could connect her with trusted investors, that he'd handled high-profile clients before. Linda didn't question it. After all, he was charming, educated, and seemed to genuinely care. She even introduced him to her daughter, Amy, who lived 2 states away. Amy said Daniel was polite, maybe too polite, like someone performing friendliness instead of feeling it. But Linda brushed it off. She told her daughter she was happy for the first time in years. Daniel started taking control of small things, her property paperwork, her insurance documents, even her mail. He said he was streamlining her new life. She didn't notice how much control she was handing over, not yet. They were seen around town often. Restaurants, open houses, even charity events. People whispered that Linda looked different. More confident, yes, but also distracted. She no longer went back to the diner, no longer met her old co-workers for coffee. The people who once filled her life with noise had been replaced by one man's voice, smooth, convincing, and dangerous in its calmness. Rumors began spreading. Some said Daniel was planning to propose. Others said he was already living in her house. No one really knew the truth, because by then, Linda had stopped answering the door altogether. A month after they met, Daniel persuaded her to move some of her winnings into a private investment fund. He told her it would protect her from taxes and lawsuits. He promised high returns, guaranteed safety, complete privacy. Linda hesitated, but he smiled that same reassuring smile, the one that made her forget her fear. She signed the papers. That night, she called her sister and said, "Daniel's helping me get everything organized. I finally feel in control." But her sister remembered something else from that call. A pause, a long silence, and then a soft voice saying, "It's strange, though. I don't even know where he came from." After that, the distance between Linda and everyone else grew. Her daughter called. She didn't answer. Her old co-workers messaged. No reply. Even the neighbor across the street said she hadn't seen Linda outside in days. Her new life, the one she thought would bring her peace, was slowly closing in on her like the iron gates around her home. The woman who once served coffee to strangers now lived behind security cameras and locked doors, trusting one man she barely knew. To the world, Linda Harper was living the dream. A millionaire with a beautiful house and a charming partner. But those who really looked closer saw something else. A woman who'd stopped smiling with her eyes. A woman who flinched every time her phone rang. A woman who, without even realizing it, was already disappearing. Not from the world, but from her own life. It started with a phone call. Late at night. Past midnight. The kind of hour when bad news usually finds you. Linda's sister, Caroline, was half asleep when her phone rang. The screen lit up. Linda Harper. She almost ignored it, but something inside her said answer it. When she did, Linda's voice sounded different. Flat. Tired. Like someone who'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Caroline asked if she was okay. Linda paused, then said quietly, "If anything happens to me, check the safe." Caroline frowned. "What do you mean? What's going on?" But Linda didn't explain. She just said, "Promise me." And then she hung up. That was the last time anyone in her family ever heard her voice. 2 days later, Linda Harper vanished. When Caroline couldn't reach her, she assumed Linda was busy, maybe traveling, maybe avoiding reporters again. But after 24 hours, the silence felt wrong. Linda wasn't the kind of person who disappeared. She texted, called, checked in. Even after the money, she still remembered birthdays and sent small notes. Now, nothing. No calls. No texts. No posts. Caroline drove down to her sister's town, 3 hours on an empty highway, replaying that sentence in her head. "If anything happens to me, check the safe." When she arrived, she found the house locked. The gates closed. Mail piling up near the door. Lights off. Curtains drawn. The place looked abandoned, except for Daniel's black sedan parked neatly in the driveway. He wasn't there. The next morning, Caroline filed a missing person report. Police initially hesitated. They said adults have the right to disappear. But something about Linda's case, her sudden silence, her wealth, her public attention, made them take a closer look. That same evening, officers found her car. It was parked beside a gas station, 30 miles from her home. Keys on the seat. Purse still inside. Her wallet untouched. Her phone gone. Security footage showed Linda arriving just before 9 p.m. She looked calm. Dressed casually. Pumped gas. Paid at the counter. Then she walked toward the convenience store and vanished. The clerk said he never saw her come in. When investigators reviewed the CCTV footage, they found something strange. A 2-minute glitch. 2 minutes of video simply missing. No static, no interference. Just gone. The screen froze as Linda walked toward the store. Then, when it resumed, she was nowhere in sight. No one saw her leave. No one saw her taken. No one saw anything. Just silence. News spread fast. Lottery winner missing. Millionaire vanishes without a trace. Reporters flooded the small town. Neighbors whispered. Old co-workers at the diner cried on camera. Everyone had a theory. Some said she'd run away. Others said Daniel had something to do with it. And a few, the ones who knew Linda best, said they weren't surprised at all. "She was scared," one neighbor told the local paper. "She didn't say it, but you could see it in her eyes." Detectives searched the property. Inside the house, everything looked untouched. The table still had a half-finished cup of coffee. A sweater draped on the couch. Her favorite book, open, face down beside the bed. Nothing seemed stolen. Nothing seemed broken. Except one thing, the safe. Behind a painting in her study, officers found a small wall safe, just like Caroline remembered. But when they opened it, it was empty. No documents. No cash. No jewelry. Just a folded piece of paper. On it, one line written in shaky handwriting. "He isn't who he says he is." Police tried to trace Daniel Pierce. At first, he answered calls, claimed to be just as worried as everyone else. He said Linda had been acting strange, that she needed space. But within days, Daniel stopped cooperating. His phone was suddenly disconnected. His social media deleted. His apartment, empty. He'd vanished, too. The last confirmed sighting of him was the day before Linda disappeared. Gas station cameras caught his black sedan heading north, toward the highway. After that, nothing. Investigators dug into Daniel's past, and what they found made everything worse. He wasn't a licensed real estate agent. He wasn't even Daniel Pierce. His real name was Eric Dalton, a man with a record of fraud, identity theft, and financial manipulation. He'd scammed 2 women before Linda. Both older, both wealthy, both vanished from his life just before police could question him. But Linda's case was different. This time, there was money. A lot of it. Her bank accounts had been emptied days before she went missing. Transfers routed through offshore accounts, impossible to trace. The total amount withdrawn? $34 million. Every penny of her winnings. Weeks passed. Then months. No sign of Linda. No trace of Daniel. Theories exploded online, from abduction to witness protection to staged disappearance. But for Caroline, it wasn't about theories. It was about that last phone call. She kept replaying it in her head, that trembling voice saying, "If anything happens to me, check the safe." The police eventually closed the case. No evidence, no leads, no body. Linda Harper was officially listed as missing, presumed dead. But locals still talk about her. About the woman who had everything, and then nothing. About the 2 minutes of missing footage that no one could explain. About how sometimes the biggest wins come with the quietest endings. And sometimes money doesn't just change you. It erases you. By the time detectives officially took over the case, Linda Harper had been missing for 6 days. And with every passing hour, hope was fading, not just for finding her, but for finding the truth. Detective Mark Hanley stood in the center of Linda's spotless living room, a place that looked less like a home and more like a carefully staged life. The house was perfect. Too perfect. Every cushion fluffed, every drawer organized. Like someone had cleaned it not out of habit, but to erase something. Hanley's team searched everything. The kitchen, the bedroom, the garage, even the flower beds outside. They found nothing. No signs of struggle, no fingerprints that didn't belong, no trace of where she'd gone. Except for one detail, a faint drag mark near the back door. As if something heavy had been moved. The investigation widened fast. Detectives started with the obvious. Daniel Pierce, the boyfriend. He wasn't hard to find, at first. His name was still on file with the local real estate office, though none of his co-workers seemed to know much about him. Some said he'd only been around for a few months. Others said he wasn't really an employee, just someone helping a client. When police checked his listed address, they found a short-term rental, barely furnished, recently vacated. The landlord said Daniel had paid in cash. No ID, no lease. Just a smile and a thick envelope. Then came the bank records. Linda's accounts, all 7 of them, showed massive withdrawals in the weeks before her disappearance. Transfers disguised as property investments, trust allocations, and financial restructuring. The total? $34 million. The same amount she'd won. Every cent had been drained. Detectives followed the money. But each trail ended in the same place, offshore accounts. Shell companies with fake addresses. Money bouncing between jurisdictions until it disappeared completely. And every transaction had one name attached to it, Daniel Pierce. When they finally brought him in for questioning, he didn't flinch. He sat there, in a crisp suit, hands folded, wearing the same easy smile that had once made Linda trust him. Detective Hanley asked simple questions. Where is she? When did you last see her? Why did she transfer the money? Daniel just leaned back, calm as ever, and said, Linda wanted to invest. It was her idea. Hanley pressed him. There's no record of those investments. Daniel tilted his head slightly. Then maybe you're not looking in the right place. No emotion. No panic. Just control. When the detective mentioned the security footage, the 2-minute glitch, Daniel smiled. Technology fails sometimes. Doesn't it? Hanley stared at him, waiting for a tell. A flicker of guilt. Anything. But Daniel didn't blink. After 45 minutes of questions, he simply said, "I think I'd like my lawyer now." And that was it. Within hours, he posted bail. And by the next morning, he was gone. It wasn't until a week later that a neighbor came forward. An older woman named Margaret Doyle, who lived 2 houses down from Linda's estate. She told detectives she'd seen something strange the night before Linda disappeared. A black pickup truck parked by the side gate, engine running, lights off. She said she recognized Daniel standing there, loading suitcases into the truck bed. When he noticed her watching, he smiled and waved. Then, she said, he just drove away, calm, like he wasn't hiding anything at all. Detectives traced the truck's license plate. It came back registered to a company that didn't exist. Fake tags. Fake records. No trace. As the investigation deepened, the picture of Daniel Pierce began to fall apart. His ID. Forged. His business credentials. Fabricated. Even his real name, Daniel, wasn't Daniel. The FBI soon connected him to multiple aliases, each tied to women who'd mysteriously lost large sums of money. In one case, the woman had been found dead, an accident, according to reports. In another, the victim had vanished after withdrawing her life savings. Every story followed the same pattern. A wealthy woman. A charming man. And then, silence. It was a blueprint for trust and betrayal. And Linda Harper had been the biggest jackpot of all. For weeks, detectives chased leads that went nowhere. Daniel's phone was shut off. His car abandoned at a rest stop hundreds of miles away. No fingerprints. No witnesses. He'd vanished just as perfectly as she had. But then came the break. Small, almost accidental. A surveillance camera from a storage facility 30 miles north caught a black pickup entering at 2:13 a.m., 2 nights after Linda vanished. The driver's face was blurred, but his build, his clothes, his walk, all matched Daniel. Inside that unit, investigators found discarded paperwork. Copies of Linda's banking documents, travel brochures for Belize and Argentina, and a fake passport under the name Eric Dalton. The passport photo? Daniel's face. By the time authorities traced the trail overseas, it was too late. The accounts were emptied. The fake identity had been used to purchase flight tickets. One way, no return. Destination? Unknown. The investigation into Linda Harper's disappearance stretched on for months. Her family appeared on television, begging for answers. The Lottery Commission issued statements. But the deeper police looked, the clearer one truth became. Daniel hadn't just stolen her money. He had erased her existence. In the end, the FBI listed both Linda Harper and Daniel Pierce, or whatever his real name was, as missing persons under suspicious circumstances. To this day, no body has been found. No trace of Daniel. No clue where the fortune went. Detective Hanley once said in an interview, "It's not just that she disappeared. It's that every piece of her life was rewritten. Every file, every transfer, every trace, gone. It's like someone planned this long before she even bought that ticket." And maybe that's the scariest part. Because when it comes to people like Daniel Pierce, the con men who play with love, money, and trust, they don't chase luck. They build it, piece by piece, victim by victim. And when they finally strike, no one even realizes what's been taken. Until there's nothing left. Years passed. And with every year that went by, the mystery of Linda Harper only grew darker and quieter. No body. No trace. No closure. Just an empty house on the edge of town, slowly being reclaimed by weeds and silence. At first, people thought her story would fade away, another unsolved case buried under newer tragedies and louder headlines. But it didn't. Every few months, someone somewhere would bring it up again. A Reddit thread, a true crime podcast, a late-night documentary with shadowy recreations and tense music. They called it The Vanishing Millionaire. Some even called it The Perfect Heist. But to those who remembered Linda, It was never just a headline. It was a wound that never healed. Caroline Harper, Linda's sister, never stopped searching. She'd moved into her sister's house for a while after the investigation ended. The room still smelled faintly of coffee and lavender, and every drawer she opened felt like a question left unanswered. Police had missed nothing, or so they said. But Caroline didn't believe it. She kept digging. One afternoon, while cleaning Linda's old study, she found a journal, hidden behind a loose panel in the bookshelf. The leather cover was dusty, the pages yellowing, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was Linda's. At first, it seemed ordinary. Notes, grocery lists, fragments of her daily life. But as Caroline read further, the entries changed. The tone shifted from calm to fearful. Sentences trailed off mid-thought. And between the lines, she could sense something. Paranoia, maybe even resignation. Linda wrote about Daniel, though not always by name. She called him the man who smiles when I'm scared. She wrote about how he'd started monitoring her phone calls. How she felt watched, even inside her own home. How the quiet she'd once craved now felt suffocating. And then there was one entry, just a single sentence, underlined twice. The quiet life I wanted was never mine to win. Caroline closed the journal, trembling. That one line, that one thought, became the center of 100 theories. Online sleuths obsessed over it. Some said it meant Linda had planned her own disappearance, that she'd grown tired of the scrutiny, the fame, the fear. They claimed she had withdrawn the money herself, staged the clues, and escaped somewhere far away, living under a new name, maybe sipping coffee in a coastal town, finally free. Others argued it was darker. That the diary was her way of saying goodbye, a warning written by a woman who knew she wouldn't survive the man she trusted. And then there was the third theory, the one that chilled everyone who read it. According to a small Reddit group that analyzed the case, Linda's journal contained hidden initials at the bottom of certain pages. When rearranged, they spelled the words, "He won." No one ever proved if it was coincidence, but the idea stuck, that Daniel, or whatever his real name was, had outsmarted everyone. That the Quiet Heist wasn't just about stealing money, it was about stealing her life, and making it look like she chose it. Years later, a hiker claimed to find something in the woods 30 miles from town, a buried suitcase with traces of paper, a few melted credit cards, and a gold bracelet engraved with the initials OH. The police tested it. The bracelet was real. The evidence inconclusive. But that was enough to reignite the story. TV specials returned. Podcasts revisited the case. Journalists speculated that maybe Linda never left that gas station, that Daniel had followed her there, staged the glitch, and vanished into the dark. And every time her name trended again, Caroline received messages from strangers claiming sightings. She's in Mexico. She's living under a new name in Florida. I saw her at a grocery store in Seattle. Every lead went nowhere. Today, Linda Harper's disappearance remains one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in America. There are no arrests. No official suspects. Just theories, whispers, and that one cryptic line in her diary. The line that every storyteller, every detective, every stranger on the internet keeps coming back to. The quiet life I wanted was never mine to win. Some say it was regret. Others say it was confession. But some, the ones who still believe she's out there, think it was a warning. A warning about money. About trust. About how the things we chase to make life easier can end up making it disappear. The Harper house still stands. The iron gates rusted now, the windows clouded, the driveway cracked. Real estate agents have tried to sell it for years, but buyers always back out. They say the house feels wrong, like it's holding its breath. Like someone is still inside, waiting. Every so often, neighbors report seeing a light flicker on in the study late at night. But when police check, the power's disconnected. A legend, maybe. Or something else. In the end, Linda Harper became a ghost, not just to her family, but to everyone who ever dreamed of a better life. Her story turned into a mirror, reflecting the fragile line between luck and loss, between fortune and fear. Because maybe Linda didn't just vanish. Maybe she escaped the thing that was chasing her all along. The noise, the greed, the people who only saw her as a number with a dollar sign. Maybe she finally realized the truth. The biggest heist wasn't Daniel stealing her fortune. It wasn't the glitch, or the missing footage, or even the disappearance. The biggest heist was winning at all. This was the Quiet Heist, where every fortune hides a secret, and every secret has a price. Subscribe for more true stories of greed, mystery, and the money that changed everything.